Hi again and welcome back everybody, or if you just joined us now, welcome to Global Azure Virtual 2020. It truly is, as every year, a global community effort. We have speakers calling in from all over the world. We have attendees joining us literally from everywhere over the planet. So thanks everybody for being here today. And we are ready for our next speaker who is here. We have the one and only Sami Laiho here on the feature track of Global Azure Virtual. In case you do not know Sami yet, so he is a Microsoft MVP joining us today from Finland. He's a leading Windows OS and security expert. I also happen to know, Sami, you've been rated as a #1 session on Microsoft Ignite 2018, and if that wasn't enough already, you were also the second best session. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so no pressure for today, because what we are doing today actually is a very interactive Ask Me Anything session. Well, not me, but Sami. So if you have any questions, please be active here in the Q&A chat on YouTube. You can basically ask Sami anything. So we will be looking forward to your questions coming in. Rick will support in asking them. So yeah, Sami, how have you been doing lately? Like, how is this whole situation impacting you?
Well, it's actually impacting me quite heavily. Last year I still did 208 days of travel, 189 airport visits, and flew 3 hours more than a British Airways captain. So, cutting down all the travel in basically one day. The last day that there were no travel bans in Europe, I was actually in Oslo, which meant that I flew back during the night, which meant I had to go straight to a 2-week quarantine first.
Yeah.
And then I've been staying home. So it really did heavily impact. I've been doing more consulting than I've done in a decade or so.
Yeah, and how did you make the shift? Because usually, at least from what I've been following you for quite some time, and see you're traveling all the time. You're speaking at conferences. You're delivering workshops, as well as abroad. I believe the last time I saw you was when you were in my country, Switzerland, last year in June. And now that's of course away. So you said you've been doing more consulting. Or how are you managing to do that online?
Well, it's technically for me, compared to maybe many others, the switch wasn't that bad because I've been delivering training online for the past 6 or 7 years. So mostly, of course, hybrid classes, meaning that we have part of the classes in-house and some are online. So technically for me, switching wasn't difficult at all. Consulting-wise, it's quite difficult because I deal with so much of security projects. So it's really difficult to get remote access into things like military bases or whatever. It's that of course is very challenging. Working with a nuclear plant via Teams is usually not an option.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's challenging. The training wise, I normally have done about 4 days of training per week and 1 day of consulting, and now it's, I'd say, kind of like 50-50 maybe. Every second week is a training. Most of my students they're either, well, sad to say, but the reality is that because I teach in remote locations all around the world, many people who come to my courses, also getting on a course is kind of a price as well, meaning they get to travel to Vienna, for example, for 4 days of paid training by the company with flights and hotels paid, and now you can either choose to postpone that training, or you can sit in your own office for 4 days and look at a monitor. So for many people, it might not be that tempting. And what's been very pleasing to me has been that I've had so many people telling me that the reason that they're actually coming to my courses is that they want to meet me in person. And now that they can't do it, they'd rather postpone. So I'd say like 50% of classes are cut, and then I'll just have to replace that with consulting.
Yeah. And how do you feel yourself? Do you also rather like meet the people in person, or do you also kind of like it like at the comfort of your own home?
I'm going crazy here. I mean,
Actually, yeah.
I'm literally in a soft room. I have a transportable vocal booth that I move from apartment to another. So I'm in this soft cell even currently. So I'm literally can go crazy if I want. I've got soft walls all around me, soft white walls. But
Yeah.
I like the interaction. I love meeting people. I love hanging out with people. So I'm missing all of that. I went to see. I had a student on my class for 4 days last week, and I went to meet him last weekend. And I went to his company to pick up a computer, and he had been on my class for 4 days before that. And when I kind of like went into the office of my customer, I was supposed to meet him in the lobby, and I realized that I have absolutely no idea what he looks like. Which is like I've just spent 4 days with the person, and I don't even know what he looks like. So
Yeah.
so I do miss the interaction. I do feel this as a real challenge, because keeping people awake in a classroom is demanding. I mean that's difficult to keep people alive even in a classroom. But
Yeah.
now that you have to keep them alive through a session like this, that is kind of a challenge.
Exactly.
You have
Yeah.
absolutely no idea what they're doing, like if they're sleeping or not. And so it in a way I feel like a challenge, but I
Yeah,
do.
so let's
I do
indeed
feel.
check, are the attendees awake? Like, so we should motivate them, like ask your questions to Sami. He is here with us for the next 45 minutes to answer any of your questions. And speaking of quarantine, Sami, we actually do have one question coming in. So what's the story about the hedgehog like, how is he taking the quarantine?
Well, that's been really difficult for him, of course. And actually, even worse is that my mother actually decided to get a puppy, which was the last thing I had to do before the travel ban. I've traveled all the time, and then my mom calls me and says, "You're so good in traveling. Can you go and fly to London and pick up a puppy for me?" Actually, I had to sit in the last row of the airplane. I haven't done that in a long time. But I got a puppy, and the hedgehog is running crazy and trying to stay away from the puppy. So that's the more problematic part. The hedgehog token is becoming very famous. I have been all around the world, and the story seems.
For the people who are joining now who do not know the background story, do you quickly want to tell about the hedgehog?
Yeah, so I started this. I started the whole story started back in 2015 with the first Ignite in Chicago, and I did a session that was called Zero Admins, Zero Problems, and I introduced everyone my way of always authenticating to my computer, which is that I always use a limited user to log on to my machine, which I have registered with my index finger, and then I have my admin finger registered for my middle finger. And I was of course scared. I was really scared, because I had just been in this Ignite. This was like my third year at the TechEd environment anyway, and I had a speaker briefing, and the speaker briefing basically said, don't insult anyone, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion. And my only demo I had was basically to give the finger to the audience. So I was so afraid like I'm gonna be thrown out of the whole ring. And then I made the demo. It ended up being super funny, and everyone loved it, and it became kind of a trademark for me. And then the next year, I had a challenge. So someone wrote on the evals of Ignite 2015 that we will come back to Atlanta just to see Mr. Laiho do the same demo with Windows Hello and facial recognition. So I had a dare. So I had to do the same thing, but now I needed a limited face and an admin face. So then I ended up doing it like this. So I had like a normal face and an admin face. And then someone wrote another eval which said, like, we don't even dare to ask for two-factor authentication. And then I had no idea how to do two-factor authentication in a funny way. And then I found out from a video somewhere online that you could actually use a hedgehog's paw to authenticate into an iPhone, which kind of gave me the idea that, and I researched it a little bit, and I found out that koalas and hedgehogs have the same fingerprints as humans.
Okay.
And now it's really difficult to get a koala. Plus, they'll rip your eyes off. I mean, they're really dangerous. So then I decided that I'll try the hedgehog stuff. And then I started asking in the US, how do I get a hedgehog into the country? And they're like, no, you have to quarantine it. It's like, I can't. I fly in and I have a session next day. I can't do quarantine. Well, then you have to declare it as a service animal. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I'll be in the airplane with, like, this is my hedgehog.
It'd be funny if you actually have it on your lap.
Yeah, I'll go loony without this. I need to have it. And then
okay, so let's see for our next question coming in. Okay, this is a good one. So have you seen any new types of attacks during the current COVID-19 situation?
Well, yes. So new kinds of attacks, we got a lot. I wouldn't say that much of new kinds of attacks, but of course, all the attacks have kind of evolved into being somewhat COVID related. So I've had a lot of, there's a huge news thing going on in Finland about us buying 5 million euros worth of basically useless face masks. And so there's a lot of it's so difficult to get your hands on either the COVID tests or the face masks and hand sanitizers and stuff like that. So basically abusing people. Currently, the most thing they're doing is selling garbage. So just getting money. Anyway, we have to remember 78% of all attacks are financially motivated.
Yeah.
So monetizing is the key for any security attack, which means that's the fastest thing to monetize right now. So I'd say everything's evolved. All the phishing, everything runs with this theme. I wouldn't say that they're that different. The only very horrible one, which I've been dealing with, is attacks against hospitals, which are now very... That's like the most horrible thing I have in my life faced. That's like the worst thing I've ever seen, but that's a reality. It's nothing's easier than attack a hospital, paralyze their system, hold them for hostage, ask them for ransom, and they basically can't do anything currently. So in Finland we have this volunteer security force that's trying to fight against this and trying to help them when this happens. But I mean that's shameless, and that's just
that's just unhuman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Rick, did we get any new questions into the channel?
We do. Sami, you said ask me anything. We're getting actually quite a lot of random technical questions. Mm-hmm. So let me start with one that I think is certainly in your ball camp. So you obviously started a bit like myself as an IT pro. You were doing Windows Server admin, that kind of stuff. As you move to the cloud, do you tend to find that you're still using those skills and deploying virtual machines and infrastructure as a service, or are you finding that your customers are more interested in the platform as a service? And do you have any tips for people in which of those services, which areas they should be investing their time in to skill up for the cloud?
I'd say there's two ways of looking at this. There's the native cloud people who actually want to use, for example, Azure services for they really want to do it the new modern way, where you actually only have basically two layers. You have the endpoints and then you have your Azure. There are some companies that try to kind of cheat their way through this, if you ask me, which is trying to just move their infrastructure into Azure, which I don't really get because we've had data centers for ages that can run your infrastructure. And that's not the way of getting all the scaling and all the benefits of the platform as a service. So I would definitely say that you should aim for the platform for service rather than trying to do the infrastructure as a service. At least getting the financial gains and all the good things about this, including all the security benefits. It's really difficult to do that with just infrastructure as a service. So absolutely platform as a service. I'm kind of like, I tried it for the first time. I mean, I'm an old fart. I've been doing this for a long time. So I'm an old on-prem guy, and I get all these students all the time. I'll do something on my command line, and I have my I was 20 when I started teaching, and my customers were all 40. So all students were 40. I was 20. Now it's the opposite. I'm 40. I'm running something on my command line, and I have my students who go like, "Why don't you use PowerShell?" And I'm like, so I'm trying my best to learn all the cool new stuff, and I'm getting some tips of it. Yeah, but then I did that first. I just moved everything to Azure because I was so proud of telling someone that I just moved 100% to Azure. And then someone was like, "So how did you do it?" Well, I just took an image of my virtual machine and I pumped it on Azure. It's like I'm in Azure completely. Like I have a VPN connection to my server in Azure. Like, it's like there's nothing different there than taking it to my neighbor's garage if I want to. I mean, that's not the way of doing native cloud. So I've skipped that. I actually just broke my laptop and I got a new one. And now I'm only Azure joined. I got rid of my own infrastructure completely when it comes to servers or Active Directory. I don't have them at all. I used to have everything. Now I don't. So platform as a service.
So when you say you're an old fart, to rephrase your words, you just said you're 40. I actually do remember because I was in Finland myself the day you turned 40. You actually hosted your own Sami Laiho conference.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I actually I should show you the, I should somehow put it on Twitter again and let people see the cool video we did of it. That was really, really cool. And I actually that was super cool because we were the most trending hashtag of Finland during those few days, and Microsoft Finland was really, really amazed because they kept calling me months before that what's happening in Finland, because they know that there are more MVPs in Finland than there were for Tech Days Finland, but no one knows why. Yeah. So everyone has travel plans to fly to Finland, but there's no knowledge of why.
Of what's happening.
Yeah. So yes, when you turn 40, you host your 40th birthday conference.
Your own conference. So just for the listeners who don't know, so Sami actually, I think you booked a cinema, is that right? In a theater? Yeah. And Sami hosted his own birthday conference, and he actually had multiple friends from the community flying into Finland to join that party, where actually you delivered several sessions, right? So it was a knowledge sharing community birthday.
Yeah, we had 150 people flying in, and we had Mikko Hyppönen from F-Secure, Chief Research Officer, the virus slayer. He did the keynote. Then we had Benjamin Delpy, the creator of Mimikatz. We had Jeremy Moskovich, Paula Januszkiewicz. So I mean, we really had a really cool lineup. It started off as a joke because you had to have a conference for everyone to have a business excuse to fly to Finland. That's why we first intended to do it. And then it ended up being a really, really cool conference. Yeah. But now everyone is asking for 41st birthday conference. So I'm in trouble with this.
Maybe it's 50. Okay.
Maybe 50, I think so.
Yeah. So let's quickly look at the Q&A. Rick, do you want to spin up a few more questions that we have received?
Yeah, so I've just had an interesting one from Raman, who says, how do you manage to remember all configuration for all Microsoft services? So I'm kind of interested in spinning that a little bit, because Rahman, I think, is asking from a skills and learning perspective, which is one area of obviously talent for yourself, Sami, but also following on from that, I think hybrid and introducing cloud as a way of managing on-prem is a topic that's quite hot right now with things like Azure Arc and that whole sort of single pane of glass. So maybe we could start with the where do you go and learn and how do you remember stuff, and segue onto what do you think are the challenges in terms of managing on-prem and cloud together?
Well, first of all, for me, learning has always been related to sharing that learning to someone. So I've always built courses, I've always built blog posts, I've always written articles. I found myself taking if I have to teach, I know I'm going to have to teach something to others. I have to learn it better than most, and it's always been quite. I used to be an owner of the biggest training company in Finland, and I used to teach 42 different classes. So it's kind of like built into me in that way. I've always been good in consuming a lot of information and translating it into a format that's easy to understand. For me, that's kind of like related to the job. If I am doing anything consulting wise, the weirdest thing I find is I have to be teaching consultants all the time that they're building Azure completely in an incorrect way, and then I have to ask them, like, did you actually look up for a Microsoft document on this? I mean, there is huge amounts of documents there that will tell you how to do this, but so I know it's hard. There's so much information. I consume a lot of videos because I travel so much. All my flights, I will try to watch videos from Pluralsight. I try to listen to podcasts. Podcasts I mostly listen to more to have like an idea of how the world is running currently. It's more like keeping myself up to date on what the industry is like. And then the technical stuff, I'll watch videos, read blogs, and I tend to do a lot of experimenting. So I play around. I love deploying things to my house and my kids just to learn things. And I seriously encourage everyone to have some hardware still the old way, because now with Corona, the ability to use Azure resources for MCTs, for example, has been cut down dramatically, which means that the bandwidth, not the bandwidth, but the performance is needed for Teams and all those more important stuff now. So it's been really hard to kind of practice things there. So if you're in this on-prem going to Azure style, then absolutely you need your own testing environments to do that. Challenges with Azure is that you are, I will look at this from the security perspective. You have a castle that you have your own servers in, and you protected it in the same way for ages. Like, no one can get into your server room except you and the cleaning lady, of course. But I mean, there's like it's like a castle, and now we're moving into this environment where your attack surface is 360 degrees, fully global. It's a very, very difficult thing to protect that. But the good thing for me is that everything starts anyway with the endpoint protection, which means that as long as the endpoints are protected, I have super happy customers now because I'm quite tough on security. And first we had Azure. We had to think about the fact that we have 360 degrees around us. Anyone can attack us from anywhere. But now with this COVID thing, everything changed even more, because now all the endpoints were taken from the office environments to your home environment, where your kids want to play with your computer, your teenagers want to watch movies on your computer. I mean, this whole thing just exploded in our hands instantly. First, we move things to the cloud, huge attack surface, then we take every single endpoint into an unsupervised environment. So it's for me, I'm happy with it, because I've always been an endpoint. I was just tasked with, from a company from Norway asked me to build a or harden their servers. They wanted to deploy whitelisting on servers, and I went in and I said it's a bad idea because no one runs anything on the server. I mean, they launch things on their endpoints that are delivered from the servers, but they're not, that whitelisting doesn't work there. We have to protect all the attack surface around, whether it's Azure or your traditional infrastructure.
Okay. So let me see, what else did we get in? Okay, so Sami, what's the best software for infrastructure as code in your opinion? Like, for example, Terraform. What are the pros? What are the cons in your opinion?
That's a very good question. Do you have any other questions?
Rick, do we?
We do. That was
actually we do. So now looking.
So one that actually came from our friends in the green room, but actually I think Izzy and I would also be interested. How do you keep up with the fire hose of information that comes out from Microsoft, from Azure, from all of these different technologies, and try and distill that into great conference sessions? We've got lots of people listening, some of whom we know, are aspiring speakers. They want to join in user groups and things like that. What tips can you give them for keeping up, working out what's hot, and turning that into a great session to teach others?
Now you're getting into my favorite topic. First of all, the reality is humans learn a lot better if they're enjoying their time and having fun. If you try to push things at them, they will learn maybe 25% of what you're trying to push at them. If you have them enjoy with great stories, they will learn maybe 50%, 70% of the stuff. Even if the most important thing is, I think something that most of us have always heard is that you have to build everything as a story. I just ended a 4-day training just before I joined your session here. And the last comment from the person who was online was that the thing I learned most about were your stories. Everything needs to be a story. I've always said that if you want to get into top 100 in a big conference as a speaker, you can do that by being technically good. If your technical skills are good, you know your stuff more than most or many, you can get to 100, top 100. Ignite, when I won Ignite had 1,700 speakers. So you can get into 100 by being technically superb. But if you want to get to top 10, then it needs to be a show. That's a totally different way of it. You can teach multi-factor authentication by showing USB keys, or you can teach multi-factor authentication by using a live hedgehog. I mean, it needs to be a story. I've always I started my career at first TechEd I ever won was TechEd Australia 2013. It's the only time I've been to Australia. So I went there. I only went there because I first made sure that Mark Rusinovich, Mark Minasi, Don Jones, and a few others were not joining because they didn't want to fly to Australia. So I knew I had a chance. So I flew to Australia, and I had a 40-degree fever and no voice when I was supposed to deliver my most important session of my whole life. Like no sound, no voice, horrible fever. So there's a tip for inspiring speakers. You did not, don't believe anything I'm saying for the next few seconds, but in Finland they sell anti-venom for viper bites. And if you buy anti-venom for viper bites, you can get your voice back. It's used by all the heavy metal singers in Finland, which we have a lot more than anyone else in the world. So
is that what you have been doing? Just like singing heavy metal the night before?
No, actually I was just sick. This time I was actually just sick. I hadn't been singing karaoke like I have a few times, but not this one. So anyway, I went on stage and anti-venom for a viper bite. In Finland, those are white pills. They're like white pills that you buy from a pharmacy. They're nothing fancy. But then when I went on stage and I figured out I'm in Australia. Now, if I go on stage in Australia and I say I had to take anti-venom for a viper bite to be able to present here, Australia has 10 of the most venomous snakes in the world. So everyone looks at me like, oh my God, he's insane. Like he's been having an IV with him for the whole night to just present here. I mean, there's nothing fancy about those white pills, but when you round it up in a little bit of a different story with a little coloring on it, it becomes a war story. And war stories are always better. And that there's like anything in a story works better. And move a story to a war story. If you have a technical skill, you have to always remember people are in the conference because they want to learn something for their work, but you win their hearts by giving them something that they can use at home. You will get them. They can go to their boss and say, now I know how to deploy Azure. That's great. But if you tell them how they can protect their kids' computers against malware, that's where you win their hearts over. So you have to have something personal for everyone to take home. And I always do that. That's why and also one thing that works very well is I try to have things, whenever I find something that I know people have missed for decades, I'll use that. That's like I like the best feedback I got from Ignite last time was because I showed people that there's favorites on regedit, which like I don't know how it's possible, but for 25 years people have missed the fact that there's a freaking favorites button on regedit. And people are like, what? Oh my God, I missed that for 15 years. How did that happen? So there are, I mean, some parts of this is, I do take pride in the fact that I am a very good teacher and I teach people skills and they will learn from my courses. But if I'm doing a conference session that I aim to win the conference with, then it's a totally different ballgame.
Okay, well, thanks. That was an enlightening answer. So I'm just thinking, so speaking of missing things, is there something that you really miss now in the current situation, something that you cannot have because of the situation we are in right now?
Conferences.
Yeah.
Both for, I mean, this is really hard for anyone to believe, but I also love sharing this stuff because it's, so for some reason people don't understand it at all, but I'm actually extremely introvert. Which
really?
Yes, I am, like insanely. Yes. I'm totally fine when I have everything in control. I have spoken for, like Ignite, the biggest one I think was Atlanta with 3,500 people in the room. I'm totally fine. I don't care if it's 10,000, 100,000, I don't care. As long as I'm in control, everyone else keeps quiet, I speak, that's fine. But if I am like if we were in a meeting room now with the three of us that I can see here on the screen, and I would have to introduce myself to you, I would be soiling myself. I mean, I get so scared anyway if I'm not in control. So I miss conferences for two reasons. One is the travel and seeing a lot of places, and I miss presenting. I love being on stage. That's the best place for me.
Yeah, to be sharing knowledge.
Yes, and see people's faces when they're like, "Oh my God, now I finally got it." And I mean, I love that. But on the other hand, conferences are very, very demanding for me because I mean, if I'm not drunk, then that's different. But if I'm sober, I'm one of those people who will go to any. I hate the expo and stuff like that. I mean, you meet people there. That's very, very.
Oh, I'm opposite. It's my favorite part.
I know that's why you do what you do, and that's good for you. But I mean, I'm going around the ceilings there, trying to make sure no one sees me and find another Finnish person I have met every day for the past 20 years. Even if I had the chance of meeting a lot of new people, I'll be there hanging out with the same person I've been hanging out with for 20 years. So I really miss the presenting part. I really miss that. I don't know how many people there are right now, and even if you tell me, I can't get the exact same feeling as I can on stage.
Yeah, it's very different. Whether if you're, I mean, same for me and for you. We're both sitting here at home. You're in Finland. I'm in Switzerland. The green room in Romania. I mean, we're like everywhere, but we are talking basically to our webcam and microphone, and it's for me at least, it's very different from actually being out there in a community and conferences and being at home. So I do see you're wearing your Ignite t-shirt. Yeah, that's maybe what we should be doing until we can go again.
I know. I'm still betting a lot because I'm a co-chair with Dave Kavula for Tech Mentor conferences in US. So
yeah,
the next one is already in August, and that's on campus. Yeah. So I'm I'm not expecting that to run either than virtual. Not sure. Currently we are officially on, but I mean it's so close. Yeah. But we have the other conference, Tech Mentor, which is then sharing the place with Live 360, and that's in end of November in Orlando. And that's what I'm actually kind of like placing all my hopes for this lost 2020. Yeah. Is that at least end of November I would be able to go to Orlando. Yeah. So I am really, really waiting for that.
Yeah, I think we are all hoping for life to turn back to normal, that we can go to conferences again, meet each other, for UND to present. Yeah. So let's see, Rick, did we get any more questions?
We do. So there was an interesting one in the audience that actually I get quite a lot. Sami, you obviously you're a Microsoft MVP. You do a lot of training around Microsoft and Azure tech. How do you pitch the Azure solution if your customer is currently focused on Amazon or Google? What do you try and bring to the story to either give them something to hook onto that's similar across the services, or specific differences that might help win the argument as they sway between choosing the different cloud providers?
The good thing for me, of course, is that I don't have to really usually pitch that much on Azure, because my customers are usually calling me that are already on Azure. What I do have to do a lot is what I'm trying to find usually is I have to find what I can replace. I mean, if you're running Windows, if you're running Azure and you're using your Windows Defender, you can get rid of your Symantec or your F-Secure anti-malware clients. If you can make people believe in things like Sentinel, for example, we can actually save a lot of money on very expensive things that are, for example, Splunk. So what mainly usually happens to me is that they always say, but we can't do this because it's so expensive. And I always will calculate to them on what we can skip if we go this way. And I was just in a meeting a few days ago, and I was sitting there with the customer, and we were talking about antivirus and anti-malware. And then some guy walked past us. We saw him through a window, and this person said that I was actually I saw the webcam so that I saw the person going past, and then he was just like, stop, Sami, stop, I have to go, and that's our CIO, I have to go and get him. And then he went to get the CIO, and I just want you to see, this is Sami in the screen. Sami just saved, he's been here for 1 hour, and he just saved us 38,000 euros. I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. I was like, yeah, ain't that great? I had no idea what he was talking about. But I didn't know that Sophos was coming the next day to sell their renew their antivirus contract. But during the first hour, I had already convinced him that he doesn't need a third-party antivirus because he's using Defender with ATP and stuff like that from the cloud. So, I mean, that I usually am best at this security side. So, security-wise, I can secure your devices. If you take Intune, I'm not saying this is the best approach, but I mean, if you take Intune, you can have AppLocker running on Windows 10 Pro. which means, of course, I would love them to have Windows 10 Enterprise. I'm not saying that. But I mean, there's always, depending on what they need. I just had a guy who had me coming in and said, like, I will take you can fix our security. You fix the whole company's security globally. But the only thing is that if you say that we have to move from E3 to E5, I'm not going to let you in. It's like, I don't care. I'll adapt. We can do that. It'll take us a little bit more work on the other side to do that. I can do that as well. But usually it's like E5 stuff, for example, is easier for me to sell by just showing them what they can skip.
So, Sami, I did what I would normally try and do before this session, which is I cyber-stalked you to try and learn a bit about you. It says on your website that social engineering is actually one of your specializations, and I'd like to talk about that for a moment, because the thing about the cloud is it makes it a lot easier, just like you said there, to lock the technological doors, to close down our ports, to get security monitoring, to put in multi-factor authentication, and that's great. But that means that the attack has shifted to going for the weak link, which is Izzy. Sorry, Izzy. And here's a USB stick that you've lost, trying to put it in there, phishing emails, and we're seeing loads of phishing.
I don't put my data on a USB stick.
What? Fair enough.
So I have everything stored in the cloud.
You're too good. Okay, so I can't hack Izzy. But what advice can we give to organizations that have suddenly pivoted to working remotely, to using the cloud, that are now perhaps seeing a climb in attacks that they were never prepared for? How do you defend against social engineering attacks? How do you actually even tell if you're being socially engineered and you're the victim?
Well, the biggest threat statistically currently against companies is still ransomware. Ransomware has evolved a lot. Ransomware went from keeping your data as hostage. It went to what I'm mostly fighting against right now, which is keeping the whole company's infrastructure as hostage. So they'll attack your Active Directory database, or they'll attack your sysvol folders. They encrypt those so they can paralyze the whole environment. Then that evolved into attacking the actual infrastructure, meaning our countries and our cities. And now the newest one, of course, is keeping you. There's no need to hack you if we keep your. If we take either your identity as hostage, or even better, we'll take your reputation as hostage, which is. Like I've had those emails myself where I get like, "Hi Sami, we just recorded you masturbating with the teenage porn site, and we have your Facebook contacts and your email contacts, and we will share this to everyone. Sami, you are very perverted." And I'm like that was bad. But now they combined that with breaches, which means they take the LinkedIn breach. And they start the same email you had before, but now it starts with, "I know your secret password is beer123 bang." I'm like, oh my God, they know my secret password. They oh my God, like they must know everything about me now. So the like phishing at ransomware, you can technically fight against quite easily with mechanisms like principle of least privilege and whitelisting. If you do a whitelist with 4 lines. Whitelist on AppLocker that says allow only applications running from C Windows, C program files, x86, and on top of that only allow signed code. First of all, 95% of all malware in the world is not signed. Okay? And out of that 5% which is signed, only maybe 1 or 2 every month are signed by a trusted certificate. Which means you're like basically safe with just that simple thing. But people always think whitelisting has to be 8,000 lines of binaries listed. Like I did this for City of Helsinki. We started with 8,000 lines, and when I was done, we were down to 72. We have 550,000 users in that Active Directory. We have 35,000 computers. We have 74 different industries. Yet we still have only under 100 lines. I mean, whitelisting is not difficult. That's the lazy option, if you ask me. And you can easily, ransomware is quite easy to fight against with things like that. Phishing is 99% of phishing attacks can be mitigated by two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication. So that's easy. But the last percent, which is the difficult one, that you can only fight against with increasing awareness and teaching people. I do that a lot now. I used to only teach IT people. Nowadays, I teach nurses in hospitals. Yeah. We have to teach everyone. Simulated phishing attacks. I use KnowBe4, for example, in many places. It's super fun. I go around the customer, and because we do these simulated phishing attacks, and then they when I go and get coffee, they come past me and they laugh and they say like, "Ha ha ha, Sami, I didn't fall into your trap." And I'm like, I haven't run anything for weeks. I mean, like, I don't.
So speaking of Sami, what I do wonder, when you get such kind of emails or phone calls, are you the type of person that then just like, let's play this game? You're messing with the wrong person today. Or do you just ignore it, report, and move on?
No, I just spent like 40 minutes on a phone call with a supposed to be a Microsoft support technician. It ended up being a 5-minute voice clip in my Tech Days Finland presentation, but it honestly took 40 minutes. And I'm having so much fun. So I was just speaking to him and he's like, "So Mr. Laiho, what browser you have?" Netscape Navigator. "Oh, what is that?" "What is the computer?" It's a Fujitsu. How old? 1993. "Oh, very old, very old." "You have a mobile phone?" "Yes, I do. Nokia 3110. "Oh no, very old, very old." They just like, I had so much fun with them. I also had I made another presentation for a security conference I did. That was also super funny because you've seen the guy he's even on TED and he's on YouTube all the time. The guy who plays games against
I did,
spam. Yeah. So I did the same. So I did the same. I've done the same thing. Whenever I get one to attack me, I'm like, yes, now I have one. So the last one I said I would have had to establish an account in a UK bank, and he demanded that I need to establish a bank account in UK, and then I ended up telling him that I can't do it now because at the end of April there's actually a promotion in the bank in UK where you can get a free pocket. Like so I have to wait a month so I can get the free pocket. And then the guy is like, "What the hell? I'm offering you 56 million pounds and you're worried about a freaking 2-cent pocket." And I'm like, okay, bye. That's enough. but I mean, I love it. I'm absolutely one of those people. I will just.
Yeah.
So if you have those phone calls, give them my phone number.
Yes.
Because I need material. I need material for Ignite to 2021 or whatever it's gonna be. So.
Good. Well, we could just post your mobile number just on the internet, and then.
I think it's there anyway. So yeah, but I'm in. Just send them my way. I will treat them accordingly. This is my superhero stuff. You know, I'm not Superman, but I can at least like keep those bad people out of your systems.
Thank you for saving us. Yeah, good. So, Rick, do we have any more technical questions coming into the chat? Ooh, that's a difficult one. So, Rick, do you want to try reading that one, or should I try reading that one?
I was really hoping you were going to try.
What about we both try? Like, I try first, and then if I fail, which I probably will, then you try.
Okay.
So, Sami.
Okay.
Here's a word, and I have no idea what I'm going to read now, so I truly hope it's not something bad. But can you tell us a story about Järjestelmän-valvoja?
Oh, yes, I can.
Can you pronounce it?
I first want to hear Rick say that word.
Okay.
You did it so well there, Izzy. No, you don't need me to do it.
But then Sami can tell us who did it better, like you or if I did.
So, I think it was actually quite good if you start off. Yeah.
So, Järjestelmän-valvoja?
That's very good.
Okay.
Järjestelmän valvoja. That's actually very good. Järjestelmän valvoja. We have more. Like in Finland, I guess the biggest one, the longest word I know is one word, which is epäjärjestelmällistyttämättömyydellänsä käänköhän. So we have really long words. I actually have these stickers that everyone wants on their laptops, but I can't I just can't really get it to you right now. But I mean, think about this. This is gonna be a very. I can't make it that long a story, but this is funny. This is my trademark. People know me from this, and they buy T-shirts. They actually buy T-shirts and hoodies from my Sazzle store, believe it or not, that says this word. It's the Finnish word for administrator. So you log on with this to a Windows operating system. The local administrator is only localized in 8 languages in the world, and one of them is Finnish. And this is why we don't need any passwords, because you can never get this correct, so you don't need any passwords. But anyway, so I went to TechEd. I wanted to win TechEd in US. Okay, you have never heard this anywhere else, and you cannot tell anyone. It's only on YouTube, so no one will know. So I actually went in and I had a joke. I always pick jokes before I fill it with topics. So I won TechEd, both North America and Europe, in 2014 with a session called Black Belt Troubleshooting Windows 8.1. And on slide 34, it mentioned Windows for the first time. And it was still the best session. I mean, it's a show. It doesn't... So anyway, so I had a joke, and the joke was, what's a Gollum hangover? You know Gollum from Lord of the Rings. So what's a Gollum hangover?
My precious.
Gollum hangover is when you wake up gray and naked behind a rock and you lost the ring. Okay? So I had that joke with me, but I had to fit it in to the session. So I needed segues, serious segues to get that in. So then I figured out that Lord of the Rings used the Finnish language as the base for the language of the elves, which is true. He was a linguist and he used Finnish as the base for the language of the elves, which ended up in what's really weird in Finland. Well, okay, if you log on to Windows, you have to log on with this. So actually, just to get that one Gollum joke into that TechEd session, I went through all of this, and it actually nowadays is just my trademark for the whole thing I do. Just a coincidence in a way.
I see Rick laughing.
I'm still impressed that we managed to pronounce that word.
Yeah. So who did better, Sami? You tell. Well, I think probably Rick. You were much faster.
Maybe faster. I would still. I would still vote for Easy. I mean, I think
yes!
It's still. I mean, it sounded more Finnish.
Yeah.
Have you been to Finland, Rick?
I have. Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to speak at IglooConf a couple of times. It's actually, as a real quickie, Sami, Finns are renowned for being introvert, and I know Carl, who's in our green room, gave me showed me the little book of Finnish nightmares. One thing I want to ask, because you say that you're the 11th most followed person in your industry in Finland, which actually gave me this weird mental image of lots of very quiet Finnish people walking softly afterward through Helsinki. But we're coming up on the end of the session.
Yeah.
So we've obviously got viewers. We're going to tweet stuff out for the Global Azure. What can we do to help you break that top 10? And put more quiet Finnish people following you as you walk around in your home country?
I don't know. Tell them to follow me.
What channels should they follow you?
Yeah, Twitter is the best one, of course. LinkedIn, I'm happy. I have huge amounts of people on LinkedIn, so I'm happy to network over there as well. But Twitter is the most. I mean, there's a very, very famous Swedish MVP called Johan Arvidmark. And Johan always starts every session by saying If you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. And Microsoft pays, if you are the highest paying customer of Microsoft, you can be notified in 45 minutes if there's a 0-day attack. On Twitter, the average is 7.5 minutes, and it's free. So
everybody get on Twitter. Good. Okay, Sami, we are getting at the end of our session. It was our pleasure to host you here live today at the Global Azure Virtual with literally attendees from all over the planet. I do hope that as soon as everything is over, that we can all go to conferences again, that we can see you speak, that we can try to pull you into the expo, and
it's been a pleasure, and you should definitely come to Finland, because here it's totally normal, because everyone is 1 meter apart anyway, with or without COVID. So it's just business as usual in Finland. No one, so but it was a blast. I really enjoyed it. It was fun, and thanks so much for having me. Good. Thank you so much, Sami. Take care and stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye. See you.